welcome everyone to this community event. Again, my name is Darshan Khalsa, and I'm just really happy and excited to deliver these messages to you about agriculture, high performance, the industry we love, and how we can continue to develop as leaders in our industry. So this talk is centered around the concept of purpose-driven by performers, right? So how do you remain purpose-driven in what you do, but do it as a performer? And I'm going to go through what that means and kind of share a little bit of examples for you, and then we'll just dive right in. So actually, what I wanted to do with this talk right off the bat is big reveal. Sometimes people lack purpose, right? They're like, what am I doing? What kind of work am I engaged in here? Do I love what I do? And actually, chances are, if you work in agriculture, you already live with purpose, right? We have this planet of ours that has to grow food and fiber and animal feed for all these people on the planet, of which far less than the majority are working in agriculture. So we do have purpose, right? So sometimes we might be thinking, well, I'm not purpose-driven, what am I doing here? But I'm actually here to tell you the message is if you work in agriculture, chances are you already live with purpose. So then what's the question? Well, the question isn't why we do this work, right? It's how we keep doing it without losing ourselves in the process, right? So how do we do it? We can keep up with the purpose, but our performance is what really matters. Right? And I'll talk a little bit about what that performance is and how we focus on it. But let's get a little bit more into this industry, agriculture, that we all love and we all work in. Chances are, if you're like me, if you've been working in agriculture for some while, you're not going to be thinking about moving out. So how do you sustain yourself in what you're doing? So it's purpose without performance. What happens then, right? So we have an industry that's really rooted in this concept of regeneration, right? Every year, it's the spring, the cycle moves forward, we grow our crops. Later in the year, we settle back down, and then we just sort of have a moment of reset. But my question is, are we doing that for ourselves? Yet many of us can feel like we're running on fumes, especially this time of year after long harvest seasons. We might be really just running on fumes after this. Ironically, also, we're doing the work for the future, right? A lot of us are planning our crops, making our research designs, looking at information for the future. But are we running out of energy in the present, right? So how can we find this balance between what we want to keep doing into the future, but at the same time, keep ourselves present in what we're doing and why? I mean, there's really a systemic reality that we have to face in agriculture. And look, from my perspective, it's not just California where many of us live and operate, but it's many other places of the world and other places I travel. There's a lot going on with agriculture in terms of what its needs are and the people that are in it. So it's not that the people don't care, right? Go anywhere in the world, meet anyone in agriculture, any farmer or anything, people deeply, deeply care about what we're doing. Well, like I said, we don't lack purpose. I think what we lack is the ability to perform for ourselves and drive that purpose forward. And sometimes it's the systems we work in that make it really hard for us to sustain that care. You just get beat down, you get driven down, and you're just like, oh, I don't want to keep doing this, right? But you keep doing it because it's, part of who you are and what you do. We have resource pressure, right? We have markets, policy constraints that say what we can and we cannot do. And then it always feels like there's like an endless sense of urgency, right? It's like, well, when was that supposed to be done, sir? Yesterday. And you're like, oh God, okay, the next thing, right? So how does purpose without systems for performance, I mean, what I'm trying to say is purpose without the systems of performance worked into them, it leads to burnout, it leads to turnover, it leads to poor performance, it leads to you not loving what you do. And I think the call to action is for the world is we need more people to get excited about agriculture. We need more leaders in this field. And we don't lack purpose because we know the job that needs to be done. But what we really, really need is to understand how do we do that at a level of performance that allows us to sustain ourselves. So what we really need to do is we need to redefine performance, excuse me. Performance isn't just about output, okay? It's not only about the yield you're driving, the yield you're gathering, the revenue, the bottom line, and all that. Yes, that's performance. I understand many people are running businesses and they operate under that context. But performance can also have a broader viewpoint of your broader definition. It's about alignment, right? It's about who you are, what you do, and why it matters. Okay, so we're going to actually break that down into three parts. And we've talked about this in my past community events, but I want to kind of dig a little bit more into them. It's about clarity, right? We always lead with clarity because we really need to see what matters most, right? Sometimes you can drive the crop a little bit harder, apply one more round of fertilizer, irrigation, spray one more time, in the sense that, yes, this is going to improve the performance of this crop. I'm going to get higher yield. But sometimes, is that what really matters right now? Right? Sometimes it might actually be the bottom line, right? Maybe it is about profitability and not about yield. Maybe it's about making sure you're taking care of yourself because a big important part of the season's coming up and you got to be focused for that. On the science and technology side, it's about not just creating the next application because you can engineer it and you're taking it from another industry and trying out in ag. It's making sure that the farmers that you're working and serving are really can make use of it and they can solve problems for it. So clarity is what really, really matters. Energy, protect your capacity. We all have a certain level of capacity and we need to protect that, because if we don't protect that, it's just too easy to lean into the burnout, like just get her done. The get her done mentality, which is great because we do need to get jobs done. We also need to make sure that we're protecting what really matters to us. So if that means you're going to go out and do one more round of work, or maybe try to turn it in a little early and get back home and get try to get your 8 hours of sleep if you can, right? Because the next day is going to be just as important. So how do you protect your capacity? And lastly, it is about leadership, right? So how do we then influence those around us around this new view of alignment? If we want to talk about alignment, about who we are, what we do, why it matters about how you lead. And that's not only within people within your industry that you're working in, it's other people that you're interacting with, right? It could be people that you're working with. It could be other industries that you're interacting with. It could be your customers or the people that you're customers of. Talking about how do you lead through alignment. So first we need to redefine performance. For you guys, for everyone, I wanted to tell a little bit about a story. So I had this bit of experience for myself. So on the left here, we can see that's a steaming hot pile of manure. And how did we take that and turn that into a system of applying compost in almond orchards in the years around the Food Safety and Modernization Act was highly active, and allow it to sort of fit into the system, right? So this was a story that I did during, after I finished graduate school. I had a period where I took on this large project at the University of California. And our role was to say, we have a vast amount of dairy manure in the state of California. A lot of them are neighbors side by side with almond orchards. Many of these dairy farmers are also almond growers themselves. And we have this vast resource of manure. And some people might call it waste or think about it as waste. And think about, well, how do we get it and use it for its value? And if you can imagine, there were just many, 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 many barriers in the way, right? We had Food Safety Modernization Act that was in full effect. Everyone, anything and everything related to E. coli and everything was just really, really super difficult to navigate. There's a lot of the uncertainties about how do you apply manure in a system that's on the surface of the soil, not tilled into the soil like we're used to doing with many of our annual and vegetable crops. How do you handle it? Right? I don't really work with dairy farmers so much, right? It's really super inconsistent. Like, I'm not sure what I do with it. When am I supposed to apply it? How much am I supposed to apply down? Where does it go? What about my irrigation system, right? So all these sort of questions came up. And the way that I really tried to focus in on this story for myself was, how do I actually focus in on what really matters, how I can maintain my capacity to stay engaged in the process, and really lead through the influence that I was trying to show to say, hey, we have a great opportunity here. We can turn this manure into some system that can really serve growers and farmers. This work was done around 2018, 2019. Some of it's still ongoing. And you can all remember probably about 4 to 5 years ago when we had a huge spike in fertilizer prices. I can't tell you how many growers and almond growers were excited about the prospect of being like, oh, okay, we have some systems in place where we can use manure, we can use compost, we can use a lot of these resources. And we've also worked with other types of crop waste and other types of things that we can go in the orchards, serve the nutrients that they need, and not be viewed just as waste, because fertilizer prices had gone up and farmers needed options, right? So if we think about this story, think about it as alignment in action. So how does this story show what it means to be purpose-driven by performance? Well, the first is the clarity, right? For me, the outcome had to be mutual for all the stakeholders involved. I couldn't just take manure from a dairy farm, put it on an orchard and say, good, we're done, great, it's there, we're done, we solved it, right? We had the farmer, the almond grower, we had the dairy farmer, we had the transporter and the handler. Often we had a composter in between. Then we had the almond board as an industry. We had buyers, we had food safety mechanisms, we had other people involved, right? So for me, I had to be absolutely clear that it wasn't just about taking a material, moving it here to there. It was about making sure that the outcome had a mutual benefit for all the stakeholders involved. And a lot of times the dairy farmers had enough manure, they wanted to get rid of it. The almond growers are like, you know what? Late in the season, it's kind of an opportunity for me. I kind of want to see how this works, and they're willing to spread it. And there are a lot of other guys who were spreaders and trucks and had sort of this handling expertise, and they would saw it as a great entrepreneurial activity. And I think now it's got a little bit more common practice over the last 10 years that fall, this time of year after harvest, a lot of growers in the Central Valley and almonds and other trees and nut crops are spreading manures and compost and other types of amendments and getting the trees ready for the wintertime. Energy, right? I had to seek out this challenge without being fully consumed by it. You could see by the number of meetings I had with Water Board, with Dairy Farmers Association, with Almond Growers Associations, with fertilizer companies, with different handlers, spreaders, and entrepreneurs, that everyone sort of had their kind of like reason to want to take on this project and see it happen. But sometimes when we're faced with all the challenges in front of it, it's easy to be consumed by all of everyone else's sort of thoughts and ideas and provocations and forget that actually I really need to make sure I'm focused on the clarity and taking care of what I can handle and what I could do. And I'm happy to say also through leadership, we really wanted to foster those relationships and really set them aside, right? Now we have a lot of realization, and it's not really realization because all these people were neighbors anyway. Many of the dairy farmers and the almond growers are neighbors, right? They're conversating, they're talking to each other, they're attending the same soccer games, and they realize like, hey, this is a win-win relationship. It's not almond milk versus dairy milk and we're at odds here. It's like, actually, no, we're a community and we have these relationships. Let's foster those relationships, set aside any of those differences. And then for me, it was about stepping aside, right? And then allowing the project to carry forward. So I just want to say that this surviving is not performing. So the reason I'm telling this story is because if you feel like you're just surviving your day-to-day and the work you're doing, I just want to nudge you in the direction to say that's a little different than performing at your best, right? And it's not an open criticism of who you are and what you're doing. It's only that you have to sort of understand that difference. And that difference is between making it through the day and truly performing in your work in life. And if you can start to subtly tease out those differences and some of the examples that I have shared with you today, then you can start to see that you too can find a higher level of performance and really drive that purpose behind that, what you're already doing. So just one of the core takeaways I just want to share with you all is, when you advance, your organization does too, right? We're all individuals, and chances are none of us are working in isolation. We're all working on teams or working in other organizations with different types of people. And when you're advancing yourself, you're becoming more clear about what you want and your needs are, and you're demonstrating that you can show up each and every day with high energy because you're protecting what matters to you and your capacity. And then when you're leading through this place of influence, then you can see that you can find a lot more alignment with who you're working with and what you all are trying to accomplish. So performance isn't about doing more, right? And I get it, right? Sometimes we just got to get it done. And yes, I know yields matter because they pay the bills, but performance, if we expand the definition, it's also about focusing on what matters. It's about focusing on protecting your energy. And then often after you have that practice for yourself, it's about influencing others through your very own example. And that's what it means to be purpose-driven by performers.